Hey everyone, Dr. Jamie here again, and I'm again with my friend and colleague, Caroline Redmon, and we're here to talk to you about borderline personality disorder and relationships. Next week, we're going to actually talk about how to help people who are in a relationship with a borderline. But today, we just want to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what it's like to be in that relationship. And that relationship might be a romantic partnership, it might be parent-child or sibling or friends. But the ones that you see the most problems with typically are romantic relationships. And, those relationships are pretty much full of manipulation and emotional extremes and outbursts. And, both people feel trapped by confusion and exhaustion. And oftentimes I think that comes out of that trauma response, because most people who are borderline have had childhood abuse. And I remember, Caroline, that you talked about that in our first video, that trauma response and childhood abuse. And we discussed the also parents with borderline symptoms. So what would you?
Yeah, I would imagine that being in a relationship with someone who struggles with borderline personality, the word that comes up to me, very frustrating,
Yeah,
really frustrating. And it almost like, if you will, walking on a landmine on
absolutely.
both sides probably feel that way. And they are cautious as to what to say, how to approach someone who, let's say, is living with someone who has borderline personality disorder. They really feel like they're walking on a landmine because they could be having a nice conversation with them, and then all of a sudden, some remark is said,
Yeah.
total innocent,
Hmm.
and there's this big emotional explosion. And there it goes from like an even sort of thing to absolute an emotional outburst.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
chaos. Yeah, absolute chaos. Yeah, and it's really difficult to manage your own reactions to that, and so a lot of people need to understand that they've got to establish firm limits, right, and boundaries in order to improve the communication. But that's hard. You sometimes feel like you're at the mercy of your loved one's borderline symptoms. You know,
absolutely, it's very it,
unpre-
it's it's unpredictable. You're right. It's totally unpredictable. And you mentioned the key word here, boundaries. And both parties need boundaries for different reasons. A
Mhm.
person who struggles with borderline needs to sort of rein in his or her emotions
Yeah.
and to set boundaries, a framework, a logical, rational framework around those emotions.
Mhm.
And for a person who is living with someone with borderline personality, having to be able to know how to articulate how they feel
Mhm.
without a borderline person going totally bananas
Yeah.
emotionally.
Yeah. We don't use bananas in a professional sense, of course.
No, we don't. We don't. But, well, hopefully we're appealing to just everyday people.
Right. Yeah, and there's so much fear and guilt and outrageous behavior, and you just feel manipulated by that, and gaslighted sometimes. Sometimes you
Mhm.
get the person makes threats, or they fly into violent rages, or they make dramatic declarations, and for the person who is not living with those symptoms, it really is like walking on eggshells. You don't know what direction to go in, or how to calm it down so that you can have that communication. You know, it it just it's so unpredictable.
It is. And another aspect too of reaction is that, there can be this explosive emotional flooding all over the place, but also um, a borderline and even another person can totally shut down
Yeah.
and refuse to have anything to do with. There's an example. that of a mother with a 47-year-old daughter
Yeah.
who has characteristics of borderline. I can't honestly say she is, but she exudes these characteristics. And when mom tries to get closer to her daughter, daughter shuts down,
Yeah.
will not communicate. And I think that is another thing that folks living in a relationship with someone who has borderline has to wrestle with. How do I know what to say? How do I know what I say is going to blow them completely off and there's no contact?
Exactly. So you're left just feeling completely helpless, and it's a recipe for resentment and depression and burnout and even physical illness. Everybody in the family will suffer this. So, if you are with someone who's borderline, man, you need to get some support. And I can't stress enough how important it is for someone who does have borderline personality disorder to take that risk to admit that they have it, and feel vulnerable enough to say, I've got it, I know I have it, and this is miserable for me too, and I need to get some help, and really commit to working on it, because like we've said before, it's extremely difficult work. But if you've got someone who's willing to help you, that you're in a relationship with, and you're working on it together, that is the ideal situation for getting better and improving that relationship, is both people working together on it and realizing then that all of this emotional instability and outrageous conduct, or whatever it is something we're working on. We're going to trust each other in that, and we're going to commit to it. That's the only way it's really going to get better in a relationship. So
Yes. And, listening to you talk, that the word that kind of comes to my mind is helping and feeling safe, just being safe to say, yeah, I've got this condition. And sadly, our profession as, mental health helpers, it's always had a bad, not
yeah, yeah,
people that do it, but psychology in
yeah,
the past has always had a very negative, shameful thing. It's no different than having cancer or rheumatoid arthritis. You got to hurt.
yeah,
Let's work to find a way to feel better.
yeah, yeah. Only then are you going to actually feel that sense of control. Like you actually can do something. And you're not so helpless. So yeah, I mean, uh, that's the. I'm trying to. I totally blanked on something, but I'm thinking about the word peace. It's like when you're dealing with BPD or someone who's got it, there's no peace in your brain and in your heart and you're never settled, and so I think that if if a person can muster up that courage to go get help, I it's just it is the ultimate in an attempt towards self-fulfillment, and getting some peace in your life. Yeah.
Absolutely. If we can help people feel okay with who they are, with their good stuff and
Mm,
their not so good stuff.
yeah,
And that's true across the whole board, you
absolutely.
know.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, well, hopefully you guys got a little bit of something out of this, and this is a prelude into our next video, which I would anticipate would be a little bit longer, because we're going to discuss how people can get help and how your loved one can actually be a part of that they can get help and they can help you as well. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we will see you again soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And thank you, Caroline, for joining me on this adventure.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You take care, everyone.